Welcome to Cheap Joe's Art Stuff. My name is Julie and I'm here to impart some knowledge to you today via a 2-minute art tip. And today we're going to do a deep dive into the infinite complexities of rendering believable hair. Yes, our demo today is going to be done pretty much with pencil, but we'll be talking about how when you're painting, you can also render hair more effectively as well. Honestly, I don't enjoy rendering hair. I don't like it. It is so tedious in order to get it right. And I will go to, I will go to some lengths to avoid it. Here's a couple of examples here of things that I will do to not render hair. I will put a hat on someone. I will put a scarf on someone more than once, or I will just crop the crud out of the image and the composition so that there's as little hair visible as possible, because I don't want to sit there and draw hair all the time or paint hair. I don't really like doing it. It's really ugh. But I'm going to try and show you some of the things, the most effective ways to make believable hair. You just have to kind of understand that you're going to have to be patient. In order to do this effectively, it does take a good little chunk of time. So let's get started and I want to show you what I mean. When I'm kind of laying out my sketches and stuff, a lot of times I'll do a lot of this with a mechanical pencil. One, because I can control the line a little bit better and I don't want it to be very dark. When I want it dark, I will make it dark. But when I'm sketching and stuff, I don't want it to have to be a big pain if I want to take it back out. Now, one of the things that just drives me insane when I see people rendering hair is I will see a very effectively communicated face or a form or something like that. They did a really considered job of doing the rendering up to that point. And then they do the hair and it's this, and then it's lines that all terminate basically in the same spot and stuff like this. No. And even if you blend it, it's still a bunch of lines, So that is not an effective way to deal with it. Now, granted, it's faster. I'm not going to say it's not, but that's not what hair looks like to the human eye. When you look at someone's hair, you're not seeing every single strand and what it's doing, all on its own. You're not seeing that. You see an overall form. Now, granted, there are very rare occasions when you luck out, like that one right there, where the subject is backlit, and so you can't see a lot of the detail that's happening in the hair. You only see little teeny spaces of light where the hair strands have like little holes in them. You'll see little patches of light that come together to form the hair, but not very often. You can kind of imagine why I might have picked that subject, because I didn't want to sit there and draw hair for hours because that's just the way it is. But what I can tell you is that rendering hair effectively is a lot about transition and lost and found edges and stuff like that. And what I mean is that, let's say, like that we have a piece of hair, right? And it's moving around and it's got stuff going on. But what we want to make sure to do is, one, not have hair that looks like this. It's like strand, and they all like terminate perfectly in the same little spot, because guess what, they don't. So you will have like little undulations and stuff that happen. So what you're going to do is you need to look at where the light is hitting the hair and where the shadow shapes are. So let's say that the light is coming from this direction, then we're going to know that the light is likely focused on that fold right there, and that the shadow is likely occurring right here. So using kind of like a blocking technique, we are going to kind of block that out. And you will always have fluctuations in someone's hair color, unless you just got Clairol for Crayola crayons hair color. It's never going to be all flat and like one color. You hope for some kind of dimensionality to it. So we're going to just kind of lay in like a mid-tone. And no, we're not going to leave that crazy business there. That was just, you know, we're just discussing. We're going to put in some tones here. And then kind of lay that in. And this is just rough. But then we're going to blend this together in a very coarse, quick manner to kind of show you what I mean. Right? I get that shadow in there, and then we got a mid-tone, and then we come down. All right, so roughly we kind of know what that shape is doing, more or less. All right, and then we're gonna back that out a little bit. All right, so you won't always have some kind of like perfect little curve that like this is where the hair stops and this is where the other pieces start. You know, there's going to be some transition, and that's what I mean by the hard, soft edges, where you have kind of like these lost pieces that kind of float in and out and stuff. So the little lines that kind of will indicate where the strands occur, you're not going to see all of them. You're just going to see every once in a while where several strands will cluster together and then move. And the same thing is true when you're talking about curly hair, you know, really curly hair. The same thing happens. Several hairs will cluster together, and then you will have, you know, movement, and the light and shadow that's associated with that all occur together. And then you very rarely will see like certain little passages that are hitting the light and certain little passages that are in the shadow. And so we're just kind of letting this happen. And sometimes several small delicate lines will indicate where a shadow occurs and stuff like that. So we're just kind of letting stuff happen right here. And you won't necessarily have just like a perfect line that defines the hair as you see it. You sometimes will just see how the shadow curves around and stuff like this. Now, you can see that we're starting to get, you know, some kind of definition built up here for where everything's happening. Now, the very famous instructor, Helen Van Wyck, when she talks about like rendering hair, especially when you're painting, is that we aren't rendering strands. What you're doing is basically blocking in your value and tonal shapes, and then coming back and then laying details on them. So you're blocking, you're looking at this highlight, you're looking at that shadow shape, you're seeing where, you know, this piece goes versus that piece, and stuff like that. It's the same with painting as it is with drawing. It's just, you know, a brush versus a pencil. You are looking for where your light and shadow occur. And the other thing to kind of keep in mind when you're dealing with hair and all that kind of stuff is that some people feel the need to say everything about the hair, Like, you can tell that there's hours and hours spent on just making sure that you get every single last detail in there. And it's not really all that important. One of the interesting rules that I learned from a portrait painter years ago was that nobody's really all that interested in the hairstyle exactly and everything that's going on within that thing. You know, they're looking at a portrait of a person. So as long as you get like the basic structure in, you're most of the way there. All you need to do is establish some details around the face that let you know like which shape, you know, which way something's moving and how it folds around the face, and then just let it go. The rest of it can just be implied. You don't have to absolutely say everything. So you can kind of see we're getting a little bit of structure here. We're getting some interesting little pieces, parts going on, and you get kind of the idea of how we would, you know, start to build this and have it be believable and relatable and stuff like that. And I always find that like sometimes I'll kind of like overwork a section and it'll get like a little bit dark and muddy. I can't say enough for one, my electric eraser that allows you to pop in a highlight really quick, or you know, just a Factus where you can erase back in and create, you know, a highlight really quickly. So you get kind of an idea of where we're going. And you know, in spite of everything and all of my protestations, I'm actively working on a piece right now that's of, you know, my daughter and her boyfriend. And as you can see, there's a lot of different stuff going on here. Like his hair is the only part that I've really kind of gotten done. There's parts where the highlights cross over other strands. There's parts where a darker piece of hair crosses over a lighter area and stuff like that. So it's never about just like big, giant, dark, chunky lines and stuff like that. It has to be kind of built and finessed and stuff like that. But just keep in mind, make sure that you understand where your light's coming from and where it's going to hit. And then also when it's time to stop, like when you've said enough. You know, so some of this is somewhat stylized because I'm not interested in like sitting there and rendering for hours. So, you know, you can just kind of pick and choose what it is that you want to say about the subject and how much that you want to say about the subject and the hair that is there in the composition. So we hope that this was informative and you got a little something out of this, and hope that you enjoy.